Today we've got Kelby Benedict. Kelby and I go back a long ways because his mother taught school with my wife as a kindergarten teacher for 30 years out at Timnath. And I don't know whether my wife taught Kelby in school or not, but she was your kindergarten teacher? Yeah. Well, we're full circle here by a long shot. So Kelby's actually followed in his mother's footsteps, and he's been a teacher, a principal, and an administrator for over 20 years in the Poudre School District area. Kelby's going to talk to us about the Futures Lab, which he operates out there, and there might be some synergy with our car repair program at Project Self-Sufficiency. So come on up, Kelby.
You know, I don't know how weird you want this to get, but my mom actually went to high school with Pete, so there is that. And your jokes, Pete, actually brought me back to when I was a kid in your kitchen at dinners, and it was a good feeling. I really appreciated your humor growing up, so thank you. As JD said, I'm Kelby Benedict, and I'm the director of the Futures Lab. And some of you may have heard of it. Some of you might be like, what is that? And that's kind of my goal today. And also talk about how you could get connected with the Futures Lab and Poudre School District. So a big impetus for Poudre School District is really being future ready and providing those opportunities for all students in Poudre School District. I don't know if you have seen the space over at the mall. The Future Ready Center is set up as kind of a test pilot, an opportunity for the community to gather. We have a lot of meetings there, but it's also informative for what opportunities exist in Poudre School District. I can tell you, as JD said, I've been professionally employed by PSD for 20 years, but I am also a part of this system, born and raised in Fort Collins, and sometimes I get confused at what exists in Poudre School District and the opportunities that are there for students. And so that's been a big part of my charge the last 10, 12 years, is how we help the community understand where kids can go and how they can get there while they're still a high school student. College has reached a point where it's very unattainable for many students. And so part of my moral and ethical obligation is to ensure that students have an opportunity to earn college credits while they're still in high school, or find that path that's most appropriate for them. If they're not needing a four-year degree, how do we help them get there? And that's a little bit what I'm going to talk about today. Hopefully I can get the clicker to work. There we go. So the Futures Lab serves all high school students in Poudre School District. It is a district program housed at Poudre High School. We are a half-day program where we serve kids for a half day and then they go back to their home's high school for the rest of the day. And we focus on career exploration, college readiness, and success after high school. Per the state of Colorado, we are a designated career and technical education school. So what does that mean? It means that we offer programs that align with industry demand, most closely aligned with the local Northern Colorado industry. We're non-duplicative. So we offer programs that every high school within the district cannot offer. We're up to 10 high schools in Poudre School District. Some of those are your very large comprehensive high schools, and some of them are very small programs that can't offer everything that some of our other schools offer. And so we offer programming that is in addition to what exists at the high schools, but also some programs that are really hard to staff. Right now, an automotive tech is making close to 6 figures. The cost to have an automotive lab in every high school just is not attainable in Poudre School District. So we just launched an automotive pathway to serve all of our students in Poudre School District. So then we have one educator, we have one site, and we're trying to provide that for all of our students. We align our pathways to industry certification. So as I said, some students don't have that opportunity to go to a four-year university, so why not help them get into industry and then let industry help pay for that? Or for them to realize, I don't need to go to a four-year university to be an HVAC tech. And so providing those industry-aligned certifications that allow kids to jump into the workforce after high school with potentially a $30 to $40 an hour paying job as opposed to the entry-level minimum wage. We also offer concurrent enrollment for some of our pathways, meaning students are going to get college credit while they take the class as well. We do that through partnership with Front Range Community College, Ames Community College, and we just signed on a partnership with Community College of Aurora for our behavioral health pathway. That also helps us make sure that our curriculum is aligned with what the community and industry is needing and what that workforce looks like. I talked about the qualified teachers piece and facilities and equipment. So as I said, we have 10 high schools in Poudre School District, and each one of those high schools, per the state of Colorado, career and technical education courses is very broad. That term CTE covers a lot of industries and a lot of fields. Most of our high schools and programs, kids have access to level 1 and 2 classes. We try to offer those level 3 and 4 classes in complement to what exists. And then the next big piece that we really try to do is either while students are at the Futures Lab or after is those work-based learning opportunities, those internships, those apprenticeships, where we get students college credit, not college credit, high school credit for the work that they do while addition to getting paid and that industry experience so that when they're ready to take that next step, they have those connections. So much of organizations such as the Rotary comes back to that idea of social capita, right? We've all been told it's not what you know, but who you know. And so as we build out relationships with students, so much of their social capita is their peers and their families and the backgrounds that they come from. And so at the end of the day, we want to expand that social capita so that one group doesn't have privilege or advantage over another. As I heard you all talking this morning about the great opportunities that you provide for our community. Project Self-Sufficiency, I've got a great friend that was supported by that. And just hearing the opportunities that you provide through just that gift of service and outreach, it removes that privilege and advantage for our community. And it allows everybody to engage. And so as we look at the Futures Lab and creating opportunities, we want to create bonding networks. Those bonding networks for us, those are the pathways. Those are the students that come to our pathways because they're based in an interest. Students choose pathways at the Futures Lab because they have an interest, a passion, or a desire to learn more about that. That is kind of that community group that builds them up so that they can be successful either with us or in the future. The next piece that we want to build in with those work-based learning opportunities is those bridging networks. We talk about connections, right? You just saw my connection to Pete and JD, and it goes even farther than that to my connection to JD's son. So I am very privileged in that I know who to call if I want to buy a house. I know who to call if I want to change a career. I know who to call if I want to invest. Many of our students don't have those bridging networks. And so part of our hope is that aligned with those bonding networks, that we're creating those bridging networks for students as well, so that when they exit high school, they have far beyond just their local community or their family unit or what they have in their life. And so trying to build out those bridging networks through our work-based learning, career exploration, field trips, internships, and apprenticeships. All of this is done with the idea of really building out great humans. At the Futures Lab, there's the content, right? There is the piece that you need to learn how to be a manufacturer, and you're getting an internship with Woodward, and you're doing these things. It's the technical skills, right? We all have industries and jobs where we learn that technical skill. I can tell you when I became a teacher, nothing that I learned in a classroom at CSU applied when I was in front of high school students that basically told me to get lost and that they would never be good at math. It happens on the job. It happens in that training. And so with the Futures Lab, we really want to create that autonomy for students. We want to build those connections, not only with each other, but also with people that are in industry in those pathways, and we want them to engage in that authentic work. This didn't hit me till about 7 years ago. When I was a math teacher, I was continually trying to convince kids why math was important, right? Because I said so does not work anymore. And so I was always coming up with these manufactured problems like, well, you want to compare 2 cell phone plans. Like, obviously cell phone plans have changed significantly, but it's that idea. I tried to create that relevancy as opposed to finding the relevancy that existed and showing kids what it looks like. And so for us, we want to create those real world problems where students are problem solving for the community. We've got a group of students right now in our design build class that are building out a magic library for one of our elementary schools in the system. They met with the principal, they met with the librarian, they met with some students about what they want this to be. They created a prototype, they put together a proposal, and they presented it. They collected the feedback, and now they're actually building a product that's going to be housed at one of our elementary schools. That's the authentic work we're looking for. But then also that deep learning, that idea that they may not arrive at the end, that there's going to be something that could be put into place at CLP middle school or elementary, or that they just learn through the process. All the while, we want them to feel like they have belonging, that they learn how to manage, that they learn from each other and these experiences, they learn to adapt, and they learn to act. These are those things where we talk about being a good human. When we have our advisory board meetings, part of being a DCTS is that we meet with industry and community advisory boards once a semester to just hear what's new, what's going on, how do we build out true learning for students. And the one thing that everybody always comes back to, gosh, it's really cool that you are building out these opportunities for kids, but at the end of the day, we want employees, we want students coming out of the system that can collaborate, that can show up on time, that can reflect, that can self-regulate, that can work with others, right? That's not the content that's on the state standards. Those are what some people call soft skills, but I would refer to as those essential skills of navigating the world. You keep losing. So I've been talking a lot about how we do it. At the Futures Lab, I mentioned we offer pathways that are aligned to industry demand and also that support the work that happens at our high schools. So we have everything from audio production and aviation to automotive and construction trades and HVAC. We just launched a behavioral health pathway this year. Next year, we're going to launch a medical assistant pathway that aligns with kind of CNA and nursing. We have an early childhood pathway because a lot of our high schools offer pre-teaching pathways, natural resources, and then IT, computer science, that cybersecurity and networking. And so really looking at what is industry demand, but also how do we complement what exists at other high schools? One of the questions at my table was, I'm in engineering, and one of the things that our district is really great about is offering incredible opportunities for all students. Most of our high schools offer some really robust STEM and engineering programs. We come in to complement what exists. So we're not competing with what schools offer, but complementing it. As I said, students come to us for half a day, so we have a different group in the morning, different group in the afternoon. We see them for a full semester, 5 days a week. And within those 2 hours and 15 minutes, students have the opportunity to engage in the learning as well as those work-based learning opportunities, those partnerships in the community. We do career field trips where they'll go out to a site, as well as really building out kind of that content expertise in terms of what that looks like. So as we continue to build out these partnerships that exist, our ultimate goal comes back to that idea of creating those bridging and those bonding networks for students so that they can engage in this authentic learning that either accelerates their path to college or gets them prepared to graduate from high school and enter the workforce in a space that they're ahead of their peers because they have that network, because they have those certificates, or because they have that college credit that kind of accelerates them on that path to where they're going. I think that's all I have. And I also think I forgot my cards. So if you do want to reach out to me, please write down my phone number or email. But I think we have some time for questions. So what questions do you have about the Futures Lab and why we exist?
You mentioned aviation, and I saw something up there about aviation. What do you do for aviation in high school?
That's a great question. So the question around what do we do for aviation? So one of our semesters is a lot with drones. And so students will earn their Part 107, so their drone license, where they can go in, essentially become an entrepreneur, and they have authorization to fly a drone. We start getting into the world of kind of pre-pilot. We have some simulators that we use with the students. But Ames just launched a 2-year program that's a direct path into becoming a pilot. And so our next steps with aviation is to really partner with Ames so that we could potentially offer that first year of programming that Ames does. They give us that approval to do it on site here in PSD. So then a student could then take that second year at Ames, and then they're authorized to become an airline pilot.
So I have a question. Well, you're encouraging students to be collaborative, well-rounded, and lifelong learners. To what degree do the students, take time off of all the social media, leaving their cell phones or their iPads someplace, and developing those connections with people?
It's a great question. It's the never-ending debate of, do you ban cell phones or do you teach people how to appropriately use them? And I think at this point, the horse is out of the barn. And so what we really prioritize is, I showed you that a portrait of a Futures Lab learner, but within our pathways, we have rubrics that we use with students. So it's kind of like a daily task list. And so that idea of, in our district, students have a one-to-one laptop. So every student has the technology they need. And so our teachers really try to facilitate and build their lessons and their days around not needing a cell phone. And then talking about when is the appropriate use of a cell phone. Coming off the pandemic, that's been one of the hardest things that we've had to navigate, because when we were remote, students learned that they could just turn their camera off when they didn't want to engage. And so they're doing the same thing in terms of physical attendance or kind of checking out. Like, this is the biggest coping mechanism when a kid is uncomfortable. To me, it's a sign of they're not engaged, they're uncomfortable, they don't feel confident in what they do. And so being able to work with those students. And so we don't have a no cell phone policy, because I know I'm constantly multitasking and trying to figure out how to leverage the devices we have for better. But we really do try to focus that 2 hours and 15 minutes on the people that are around you and that are in front of you, especially when they are out in the community. If they are out doing an internship, apprenticeship, work-based learning. I was actually over at our culinary program this morning. Not a single cell phone was out, because they were in their bags, they were tucked away, and they were working in their kitchen. And so that idea of, are we providing that opportunity so they don't have an excuse to take their phone out, but also being intentional about teaching, this is an appropriate time to have it out. This is a time that your focus is on the people and the humans in front of you.
Thank you. So who besides me wants to take a drone class?
So all this is at Poudre High School, is that correct? Did I hear you say that correctly?
Yes, the Futures Lab is housed at Poudre High School.
And so all the students who are going through those different programs are Poudre students, or are they at other schools also?
Thank you for asking the question. I missed that in my presentation. So if our schedule is offset about a half an hour from the other high school bell schedules. So Students that want to take a Futures Lab program, there's a bus that goes from their home high school to the Futures Lab and then takes them back in time for lunch. Afternoon students come after lunch and then head back to their home high school so they can participate in sports, extracurriculars, or ride a bus home. So there's transportation provided to all students across Poudre School District.
And so this is kind of a school within a school, kind of like the IB program is at Poudre, but so they don't have other classes when they go back to their home school? I'm just a little confused on that.
Yes, so it's very similar. So they're co-enrolled in the Futures Lab. So take, for example, a student that was in class this morning at the Futures Lab. They went back this afternoon to their home school to take math or English. Because all of our high schools are on a quarter system, they'll do math, English, science, social studies, and any other electives outside of CTE at their home schools, or some of those level 1 and 2 CTE courses at their home schools. So they're taking classes at both sites.
So how do kids get hooked up with this? Is it through the teachers?
Yes, so kids are connected through their counselors at their home school. When they register for classes, we're just finishing up registration season. When they register for classes in the spring, this is an opportunity for them to select these courses just like they would at their home schools. We are open to 9th through 12th graders. However, the 9th graders are really taken on a case-by-case basis because we want 9th graders to fully invest and get connected with their home high school first before they're kind of splitting campuses and doing different programs. Some of you might be familiar with the Career Pathways program that used to be at Front Range Community College. That was collapsed about 5 years ago. And so this is designed to kind of rekindle that, but fully being owned by Poudre School District as opposed to being contracted out to Front Range Community College.
Hey, Kelby. I
Yes.
just wanted to ask you, I know that you were a principal, and I wonder how much of your desire to develop this program was from gaps or deficiencies that you saw in the school system.
Absolutely. I think 100%, Pete. When we look at Poudre School District being one of the best districts in the state, we still have those gaps that you addressed. And those gaps are our language learners. Those gaps are students with an IEP, which is an individualized education plan. And those gaps are our free and reduced lunch students, so our students of poverty. And in my time in the classroom and as assistant principal and as a principal, what I found is kids that are truant, kids that are that demonstrate behavior and are a discipline problem, kids that are not passing their classes, they are just disconnected because they don't see the relevancy. I tell people all the time, I knew how to play the game really well when I was in high school. I knew how to get A's and B's, and it was not hard at all. One of the reasons I became a math teacher is because math was easy for me. And it wasn't until I started teaching calculus that I realized I know nothing about math. I knew how to replicate the algorithms. I knew how to play the game. I knew how to say what needed to be said. My wife is a published author. I'm really proud to say that now. I didn't read a single book between 9th grade and freshman year in college. I aced every English class I took. And so we have students that, and I was a people pleaser, and that was a big part of who I was, but we have students that could care less about what the adults in front of them think. And so they're like, it's easier for me to fail. It's easier for me to drop out. It's easier for me to be disconnected because I could care less about the book, How to Kill a Mockingbird. I could care less about that algorithm that you taught me in Algebra 1. However, we launched our automotive program this spring. Futures Labs have been hovering about 150 kids for the last 3 years in terms of getting interest. Next year, we have 93 kids interested in automotive. So we almost doubled the number of kids in our pathway because we launched a pathway that is relevant to students that don't find traditional education relevant. So if we want to continue to close those gaps and provide those opportunities for those students that aren't graduating on time, it's providing them a route to the future that they see for themselves, while also helping them see this is authentic learning, and drawing out the science and the math and the language arts standards. That's another thing that I didn't mention. At the Futures Lab, all of our pathways are tied to at least 5 credits of language arts 5 credits of language arts and PSD, because so much of what we do is that reading, writing, and communicating. Some of our pathways, our aviation pathway, gets 5 credits of math because they do a ton of math in that classroom. Our automotive pathway gets science credit because they do so much science in there. But for so long, these kids are like, I don't really care about school and I don't want to engage. And so being able to provide a pathway that aligns with their passion and interest, and then drawing out those standards and helping make it explicit to them, is really helping re-engage students.
Hey, Kelby. I work at United Way, and we work with a number of about 120 companies in Larimer County that have employees that want to volunteer. Are there adult volunteer opportunities in your program outside of the regular teachers?
Absolutely. We love having people come in, either to be a guest speaker is your traditional way to volunteer, but we have volunteers come in and give authentic feedback to our students. So our students will put together an idea or a business or a project proposal, and we'll have people come in and give feedback on that to those students. So they're essentially sitting in front of a panel putting forth a business or a project proposal. We love to have those connections too, if they want to volunteer their time by hosting a visit, bringing the pathway and being able to do a career or a site visit. We love those things, as well as I mentioned those advisory boards. Those advisory boards happen biannually, so we do a fall and we do a spring, where we do a breakfast or a lunch where it's just networking. So our teachers are networking with business and industry professionals and creating those connections, talking about what they're looking at doing, and that's across the district. So that's not just the Futures Lab, that's CTE teachers that exist across the district. And then also allowing business and industry talk about what's big in their world, how are things changing, what do we need to be focusing on, as well as then providing a time and space for them to collaborate. So for our teachers across the district to collaborate with the Futures Lab teachers so that we are truly in partnership with all of that. So those are some 3 or 4 very tangible ways to do that. But yes, we welcome that, absolutely.
Does every student who wants to get into the program get in, or is there a waiting list? How does that work?
It depends on the pathway. We're definitely going to have a waiting list next year for automotive because it is a pathway where we, just for safety and as we continue to build out our facilities in partnership with people around us, just having the right amount of people in the lab. So that one will have a wait list. But up until this point, pretty much any student that wants to be a part of it has been able to be a part of it.
Another question in terms of what advice or instruction do you give to your instructors on how to weave into what they're teaching ethics, integrity, and those kinds of things that are really important, but somehow a lot of times just get lost?
You know, I think you ask the best questions. It's one of those things where oftentimes as educators, we are asked to do so much, right? It's math teacher, counselor, parent, ethics advisor, you know, moral police. But in a program like this, what is so cool is being able to kind of step it up a little bit And having people from outside of education come in, provide that feedback on proposals, being accountable to something bigger than yourself. So we have students in our behavioral health pathway that are leading kind of really just kind of peer connections groups at some of our middle schools and elementary schools, and helping them see somebody else is dependent upon them. It's not just a decision for them to not show up today, because now all of a sudden they've got 5 elementary students that are depending upon them. And so being able to have some of that external influence helps with some of those pieces that sometimes are hard to be taught in a classroom. You know, when you're talking philosophy and religion and those sorts of things, it doesn't really set in until life presents it to you. And so that's where it comes back to that idea of having those authentic connections with people outside of our pathways, our classrooms, and in the greater community, so that they can get that feedback. And sometimes it is learning the hard way. It is learning from failure. And that's a big part of who we are too, is that we're not going to get it right the first time. And so the learning is going to happen through being successful, but more often than not through failure and learning from those situations and being able to explicitly speak to them. Within our classes, our teachers make it a point to really explicitly talk through those situations that are a great learning opportunity for everybody.
I got 2 parts here. The auto industry is obviously short of mechanical engineers or mechanics. I assume that you're getting some support from the auto industry to help supply their help, and I assume EV is part of your program too.
I'm going to try to address that in 2 different parts. So automotive is changing significantly, and you know, right now we're providing kind of a basic repair and light maintenance overview while also getting students exposure to the world, right? We've got kids that come in that just love to mod their cars, and then they realize like, oh, I don't want to be an auto mechanic. We also have kids that come in that work at Discount Tire on the weekend and they want to learn more, but also letting them see how big the auto world is. And auto is really changing significantly. The kind of mom and pop basic repair shop is kind of going away. And fleet services is growing exponentially, as is electric. And so our goal is to really get kids exposed to all the different avenues in automotive and kind of creating a pipeline to the Front Range program where they can then focus on kind of those technical skills. But also if a kid realizes, yeah, I don't really want to do basic automotive repair, I want to do diesel tech, helping them recognize what other programs exist for them to do that and how they would go down that road. EV is a small piece of our program. However, it is a piece that is very, there is a lot of, let's just say, hoops to jump through. So to have a shop that works on solely electric vehicles, there's a lot more risk that comes with that. There's a lot more safety protocols and precautions. And so what we are doing is really teaching kind of that basic electricity, hybrids. We have a kind of an electric kit car that we purchased for the kids that they can kind of build and then they can tear back down for the next semester to be using. But in terms of like an electric vehicle repair, there's still some work to be done. There's a number of school districts in the state that have started that down that road, and it's been really hard to outfit their shops when you take the industry requirements as well as kind of high school students working with that. And so right now, our automotive is really to provide that exposure, that basic experience, and help them build those bridging networks so they can then go down that path to jump into fleet services, electric vehicle services, diesel mechanics, auto body, those sorts of things.
So I have somewhat of a follow-up question to Diane's. If you'd notice the white banner behind you at the very bottom, it says Service Above Self, which is obviously one of the foundations of Rotary. I know Weld County, their school district requires the students, I think, have put in 40 hours of service in order to graduate. Does Poudre School District have anything like that?
We do not in Poudre School District. But one of the things that, when we talk about this idea of being able to have those real world experiences and being able to advocate for ourselves and others, it's that idea of thinking beyond. I leaned over to JD when you all were talking about donating a car for Project Self-Sufficiency, and I was like, that would be a great opportunity for our automotive program to do basic maintenance on those cars that you all are donating. And so each one of our teachers is constantly thinking about, yes, we're preparing our students for college and industry, but how are we also preparing them to give back to their community? So a lot of the projects that we do, I mentioned Design Build is doing a project for CLP Elementary. They're also doing a project right now for Collinwood Assistant Living and building some planter boxes that are ADA accessible. And so really thinking about our community and not in a business way of like, how can we make money, but how can we give back? How can we improve the life around us, and what does that look like? So PSD does not have that requirement in their graduation requirements. However, I would venture to say that every school offers some sort of service learning class that is an optional class that fills pretty frequently every year.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelby. Appreciate it.